Hello there. This video will take a little bit of time, and I think it's worth it. So I'm going to tell you a story today. It's actually a story today about yesterday, and it was brilliant. It was a really good day, and I'll tell you why. As you know, those of you who watch my video and those of you who don't, I am a ex-Jehovah's Witness who blogs and does these little video blogs about my experience as a Jehovah's Witness, about what I feel is wrong with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I tell you as much as I can about it. Well, I've got a confession to make. I'll tell you what it is. Other than, I've been out 15 years nearly, and other than having several conversations online, including with a few people who then subsequently left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I have never spoken to a real live Jehovah's Witness. Never done it, right? Online counts, but you know what I mean. I've never just gone up to someone who I've claimed and said that I love as Jehovah's Witnesses in a recent video. I've never actually just stopped and said, listen, you know, from my heart to you, I've got to tell you the truth, mate. I've never done it, and you know, I'm not ashamed of that, but it's true, I haven't done it. And there's some good people out there who are just, you know, doing amazing things, picketing kingdom halls, which I kind of think is, you know, tough, but I understand why they do it. There's people doing amazing videos, and there's just me doing what I can do. And yesterday rather, I changed things up. My wife and I and the kids, we were in a little town called Larne, and we were visiting a shop that a friend of hers from work had quit to start. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were out with their information cards. Now, in my hometown where I live, if the Jehovah's Witnesses see me, they quite frequently pack their stuff up and leave. Even though I've never really got involved in a conversation with them, I have said hello briefly, or, you know, passed on my sympathies if I heard about the person they love dying that I knew as well. But nowadays they're starting to just pack their bags and go. But anyway, this guy obviously didn't know me, and I walked, you know, up and down past. I must have looked like a serial killer because I just kept walking past the guy. I wanted to talk, but my hands were shaking and my stomach had that feeling, and I just was nervous, you know, terribly nervous. And my wife was there, and every time I was going to do it, every time I just chickened out. And eventually my wife, we were walking past, and I was just, you know, I'm so ashamed, I can't do it. And she just went like, shoved me towards them. So, long story short, there's me standing in front of Jehovah's Witnesses with their little information booth. And I said, may I? And they gave me a copy of The Watchtower Awake, which, by the way, they weren't great in the past, let's be clear, right? But they were like 32 pages long, and now both magazines aren't 32 pages long. And I'd like someone to please explain to me where the Watchtower study articles have gone. What happened to them, okay? But anyway, I took the magazines off the man, and, you know, I'm going to tell you all about him because he was a lovely guy, right? His wife had nothing to do with me, but he was a great guy. But I'm going to tell you a bit about him, right? He was stereotypical missionary, right? I mean, he looked, you know, like those Mormon guys, you know, hi, I'm a Mormon, look at me, I'm John, you know, I'm 6'4", and, you know, you just see them and you go, yeah, you're a Mormon in the distance. Well, this was a clear Jehovah's Witness missionary, you know, and you knew he was a missionary, you knew he was English, you knew he was a former Bethelite, you knew he was an elder, and you didn't even have to talk to him to know all those things, right? And of course he was all those things when I got talking to him. So we started off having a conversation. He asked me, did I have any interest in spiritual things? I told him, and you know, I was going to do the whole, yeah, but let me pretend to not be a witness and start asking you tough questions, you know. But then I just thought, you know, it's not my style. I can't. There's no subtlety with me. There really isn't, you know. Ask my wife. She asked me recently, do you want to redo or get remarried for your 10th anniversary, which is coming up in September? And I said, do. And then she stopped talking. But anyway, so I'm not a subtle guy and a bit of an idiot. But anyway, so this guy asked me, do you have a spiritual interest? And I just said to him, yeah, in fact, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness for a long time. And he was like, oh, shock horror. But nice shock horror, you know. And we got talking, and I explained to him where I came from, down the road. Turns out we know the same guy. I mentioned him before. A good old friend of mine, Roddy Moyer. He's an elder in Lisburn, and they're friends with each other now. And we got talking. I brought up the 1006 paedophiles who were not informed to the police in Australia, and he said that's a disgusting crime, and anyone who does that should be reported to the police. And I said, you know, his name was Kieran, lovely guy, English fella, and I said, Kieran, we both know that doesn't happen though. We both know that's not true. It doesn't, you know. And we got chatting, And I'm going to try to remember everything I said because, it's 20 minutes and it was a long conversation. But one thing I have to say, which I thought was really weird, I'm pretty much an agnostic now, though not a great believer. But when I was talking to him, I finished, and I remember that when I talked to him, unlike now, there was not one moment when I slipped up. There was not one moment when I was rude or abusive or, over-egged the pudding and, I could be disproved. Everything I said was fair and to the point and reasonable, and he accepted most of it, And I was reminded of that scripture in the Bible where it talks about, how God will make, if you don't want to witness about him, God will make the stones witness to him or witness for him. And I thought to myself, I'm like that stone because, I was never that good at it in the first place. But speaking to him, I was actually the best I've ever been. I was like, that scripture in the Bible where it says that don't worry about what you have to say, the words will be put in your mouth. That was exactly what it was like. So we got down to it. He talked about the paedophilia thing. He talked about it was terrible. We got talking about how, Jehovah has an organization on earth. I says, does he? Really? I said, and he says, well, what we're doing is we're making new people. Look at all the other churches and all the things they do wrong. I says, listen, I accept that. I says, but let me tell you about where I come from. I says, when I was married, I got married in a Presbyterian church. I knew nothing about it, and they don't make a big deal about it. But this one Presbyterian church funds an entire hospital in Uganda, Hamilton Road Presbyterian in Bangor, and they pay nurses to come from Uganda, poor women, to train as nurses in Queen's University, and then they can work in the hospital if they choose, or they can go on and have a great life and a career. That's one church. One church does that. And I said to him, I explained that to him, and I said, what do we do? I says, we're the guy in the parable. We look at the Samaritan injured on the ground and we say, keep warm, well fed, bye, want to watch Turn Awake? It's Babylon the Great that's helping that guy. Okay? Now he disagreed a little bit. He said, listen, I've worked in Bethel. We do a lot of stuff, international committees. But then he kind of ruined it because he said, yeah, but I know we mostly help our own, but we also help other people too. And I was like, yeah, well, okay. I'm going to grant you that a little bit. Okay? But anyway, then he said about how the Jehovah's Witnesses were making new men and women, that they were teaching new people how to be better fathers, better husbands, better citizens. And those are the three things he said. Excuse me. And this is when, I don't know where this came from. I'm sure somebody said this before. I know they have, because I have absolutely no original thinking of my own on Jehovah's Witnesses. It's just stuff that I've read and I'm amazed by, horrified by. And anyway, I said to him, listen, Kieran, I says, I was a mere publisher in my kingdom home, okay? I says, never even made it to ministerial servant. I says, yeah, if I was, and I told him, I'm not doing this to be insulting to my previous hall or to be insulting to Jehovah's Witnesses in general. But I said, if I was to talk to you now about my old kingdom hall, where I came from, I could name you one paedophile, I could name you 3 fraudsters, I could name you 3 kids, a man with 4 kids, who none of whom stayed witnesses, 3 of whom made good money as drug dealers, right? I didn't, now this is where I should have added on, but I didn't, again, I didn't over-egg the pudding too badly. I didn't add that I could have found you one other drug dealer. I could have found, these are all young kids, I could have found you an elder's wife who cheated on her husband. I could have found you an elder who cheated on his wife. I could have found you a brother who stole his sex-changed daughter's partner. Honestly, I could have found, I could do this for the next hour about weird things. I'm not even talking about, most of the sexual stuff. I'm just talking about the general stuff. Okay, and the 3 fraudsters were terrible, including, robbing off my own family, right? All kinds of things, right? And I said to him, honestly, listen, Kieran, I'm not saying this to be offensive to you, but you're an elder. I says, you could name far more than me, couldn't you? And you know what he said? And you know what? Hands down, hands up to you, Kieran, if you ever see this video, because he looked at me in the eye and he said hundreds. That's all he said, hundreds, right? Because he's an elder and he deals with it all day long. Okay, so pardon me, he admitted it, and this is what I then hit him with. I said, listen, Kieran, I said, if your claim is that we're making better men, better citizens, better husbands, I says, and the people are no better in the church, what's the point of our teaching? How is it better? Now, he had no answer to that. He said, well, I suppose it's difficult and people are just fighting imperfection. And yes, they're fighting imperfection in the Catholic Church and in the Protestant churches and in Islam and in atheism and in Buddhism and in Hinduism and in everything, okay? And in none of the above. They're all fighting human imperfection, okay? Because that's a lot of us, all right? But the point is, nothing that he teaches improves it. Sorry. Right? Now, he accepted that, right? And I thought that was brilliant of him, right? Really brilliant of him. And it was at this point that I said to Kieran, I hope I don't get you in trouble, Kieran. You can always say I was a liar, because, you know, apostates. Crazy. It was at this point that I said to Kieran, listen, it's really a pleasure talking to you, Kieran, because I really felt it there, mate. A bit of a man crush. And I said to him, I said, it's brilliant talking to you, Kieran. I says, you know, whenever I was a Jehovah's Witness, there was an awful lot of elders, not all by any means, but a lot of elders who were, and then I stopped at this moment and I was like trying to think of something not to insult him. And he interrupted me and he went, narrow-minded, dogmatic. And I thought, yeah, you met them too. And, you know, this is the only elder saying this, you know, but honestly, brilliant guy. So anyway, we shook hands. I said, listen, I didn't want to hold him up too long because at the end of the day, his wife, she'd been gradually sidling off to the corner as fast as she could. I was pretty horrified. I pointed out to him as well, by the way, that, and this is thanks to, I think this is thanks to Katie Kitten, by the way. Thank you, Katie. That I actually pointed out to him that even if I wanted to come back to the meetings and I came back gung-ho, I would still be an apostate because you no longer believe the things that I was taught were true. So which of us is right? Right? So anyway, shook his hand and I specifically said to him, listen, Kieran, I don't want to hold you up anymore. I know you're probably uncomfortable. I certainly would be if I were in your shoes. I said, and I know you've got a job to do. I wanted to make it clear to him that it is a job, right? It's not service, okay? Not sacred service by any means. It's a job. And we shook hands again and he said to me, please, Neil, have a read of those Watchtower Awakes, which I did. I did read them. I read them from cover to cover, and this is not an insult to the Jehovah's Witnesses. I did recycle them. They are now the bed linen, bed matting for our new family duck. We got a duck for the kids. So cute. And anyway, so I did that. I did read them, and he said, please go on our website. You'll love it. It's brilliant. It's got lots of new information on it. And I was like, well, I will do that. I says, Kieran, but I've got to turn that round on you. I says, we're both grown men. I'm prepared to read and listen to things that I disagree with, that challenge my worldview. I said, you are a pioneer. I said, you're a Bethelite? And he went, yes. I said, you're probably a missionary? Yes. I said, you're definitely an elder, obviously? Yes. I said, you're a man, and you're a grown man, you're in a position of considerable authority, and you're well looked upon in the Kingdom Hall and the society. I says, why won't you do the same thing? Why won't you read things that challenge your worldview? And he said to me, well, I suppose you just got to be careful with what you're feeding your mind with. And I said, yeah, well, if it's wrong, you'll know it. If it's wrong, you'll know it, Kieran. And I still say that to you if you ever watch this video. Pardon me. If it's wrong, you'll know it. But we shook hands, and I said to him as I left, I said, Kieran, you know, I said, I'll read these Watchtower Awake. I said, and if they're right, I'll see you at the Sunday meeting. Right? I says, but I hope one day you will see the sense of what I'm saying. I said, I hope you will, and you'll find me on Facebook. And we shook hands on my left, and I got to say, I was bouncing. It felt so good. Okay, I felt happy. I was polite. I was respectful. I give him huge uppercuts of knowledge, right? Or as I call my daughter whenever I'm hitting her with a new fact, I call them truth bombs. Boom! Right? So I hit him with a bunch of truth bombs about the truth. Truth bombs about the truth. That's mine, copyright. No one can take it. And he was really polite and respectful, and he took it. He told me there was things he was waiting on from Jehovah, which is the last ditch effort when you're out getting out the door. And I'm sure it'll do no good at all for a long time, but hopefully it's the flea in his ear that's going to bother him when he thinks to himself, yeah, that apostate, he didn't seem too hateful. He wasn't too mean to me, and he had some fair points, So all I can say is I took the inspiration from better people than me, from people who are doing more than me, who do better videos, who work harder, and who do far more activism. And but it was mine, and it was my little act that did a good thing. And if you're watching this video and you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're able, not everyone is, if you've got loved ones in it, stay the hell away. You know, don't risk losing a daughter or a son or a grandchild off the back of any nonsense I tell you. But if you're able and you can say to people, hey, by the way, come here, you, I've got something to tell you. Do it, because you will not regret it. It is a brilliant feeling, and it'll make your day. Made my day. So, guys, thanks very much for having this, watching this video. It's 15 minutes long, longest video I've ever made. Don't know. I'll see who's watching it at the end. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a great day like I will. Bye bye.